we doing? Someone is asking, right? For Michelle.
Brahmachalokati tahi sahampati Katanjali Anadi Varam Ayachatta Sandita Sattaparaja Kajatita Daisy tu Dhammam and Kampipam Rajam.
Terms. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Don't say so. Today is Sunday. So one of the things of teaching retreats now is I ask that whoever's organizing the retreats, that it's made known to everyone, all the participants, that they should have a background in the Four Noble Truths. So I don't do beginners retreats. So sometimes there are beginners, and then I feel guilty. So the themes I talk about are themes that interest me. I don't know if they interest you. So, and obviously they're not just interesting, they're helpful for me. So I think, okay, share that. And that always makes it easiest for me. And it allows me to keep exploring what I'm exploring. So a retreat is also a chance to say things maybe that I'm exploring and trying to express, and have I got that right? And it's quite a creative process, both in terms of expression, but also in terms of my own inner investigation. My first teacher, who was American, Venerable Bodhisattva in India, he said, if you can't write it down, you don't know it. I'm not a writer. But I say, if I can't speak it out, I don't know it. There's something about explaining something. So it's, teaching a retreat's also edifying for me. I hope it is for you. You would know that as a teacher, right? So on, and Joel and Elaine too as teachers. Anyway, so just this morning I was kind of contemplating what are the kind of go-to teachings that I've used a lot, because there's such a plethora of teachings in Theravada Buddhism, and they're very, very good. And I certainly, in my early days, I read a lot and studied a lot. And then, as the story I have is that Ajahn Chah said to me, "Don't read for 5 years." Not that there were any books there anyway. That was another thing. There weren't any books, not English books. But he could see that, and most Westerners, we were overly intellectualized. That our kind of go-to approach is always analysis, judgment, thought, more thought. So he recommended just trust your own capacity to be aware here, be aware of the heart, be aware of suffering, etc. And of course, I didn't take that to heart, and if I had a book, I'd read it, because I was so culturally hungry. It was like sometimes I'd be like one monastery, spent a whole year. It was the most poorest monastery I've ever been at, and most boring. There was just nothing. There were 5 monks, and I don't like you'd get a truck like once a month come through. It was really like, and just being that cultural deprivation. That's deprivation isn't a good word, is it? But you know what I mean. It's like nothing to stimulate you. But everyone was really nice. Villagers were beautiful, but they all spoke Lao, and I was learning fundamentals of Thai. I didn't know, and so on and so forth. So what I used there was memorization. I just spent a lot of time memorizing Patimokkha and other texts, keeping my mind engaged. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But so then I had probably I don't know what books I had. But then when we had the Western monastery, Wat Nanachat, then there were more books available, and in India too, I read a lot. That early year when I first came to Buddhism. So I studied a fair bit, but I'm not a scholar, and I can learn quickly, but I can forget quickly. So I could memorize stuff, and then so now latterly, because I don't use a lot of the concepts and structures, someone will ask me, "What does this word mean, Bhante?" And now I bluff it. I say, "What do you think it means?" And then, oh yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, and then it's true, because I really don't think it's about words, and so on. It's about pointers. So the pointers I use are the things that I keep coming back to are the statement. There's the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, the unformed, the deathless, peace, the harbor, nibbana. There's several lists in the Nibbana Suttas that talk about that. So that has always been foremost in my contemplation, because it seems to me that whatever I'm doing must be serving that realization. If it's not, then what's the point? So whether it's psychological balance or lifestyle or samadhi or investigation, it has to serve that. And that's served me well, because that's always kept my interest on the what I call the transcendent. And then I would say, like when Lompa Samedo says it's like this, and attention is just allowed to be unfurnished with concepts. Do you get that? An unfurnished attention. So I look at the fan, and I don't furnish it with concepts called fan or whatever. It's just suchness. And that takes me back to here, to the unconditioned, uncreated. Because it's unfurnished. As soon as I furnish attention with a comment, which is not wrong, when I start to comment, I say, a little bit of dust up there. Get the monks who clean this monastery anyway. Well, maybe we need one of those too. And mind is reborn into that, which is not wrong. So when Lompa Samedo says it's like this, to me, the way I take that is kind of like the Bahiya Sutta. Bahiya, in the seeing, there's just the seeing, in the hearing, there's just the hearing, in the tasting, there's just the tasting, and Bahiya, when there's just that, then there's liberation from duality and suffering. So if I take, it's like this, and seeing, there's just this, that always takes me inwards, not even in or out, just to the deep silence of the mind. So that's important for me. So the movement out is commentary, judgment, whatever, and then the unfurnished attention is just silence of being, stillness of being, which isn't something that I'm manipulating, am I? I'm just paying attention in a particular way. It's there. So that language is helpful and important in remembering. And then when I read across traditions, and I do a lot, not read so much, now it's more podcasts, across traditions, then those are the things I look for. How do they talk about the transcendent? So the Kagyu Tilopa's poem to Naropa, was it? Which Ropa was it? I can't remember now. Anyway, you know what I mean. So then I can see, oh yeah, okay, that's how you describe it. That's how you describe it. So then, also central to that is, for me, why we talk about causality the way we talk about it. So the way we talk about causality is dependent origination, and in specific instances, with this there is that, with this condition there's that condition, without this there's not that. And so conditionality is the relative nature of all experience. And it's true. So with electricity as condition there is light. Without electricity there is not light. So that tunes into the unconditioned by saying, well, if I'm interested in transcendence, if I'm interested in the relative, I use causality. So if I want to make a cup of tea, and I get the tea and I boil the water and I use causality to create a cup of tea. But now in my spiritual inquiry, I'm not interested in something which is relative, something which is conditioned, something which is constructed, something which is dependently originated. So that language works. I'm looking for something or pondering what is not dependent, what does not have an origin, what does not have an end. So that language is very important for me, in the way I, not just thinking, in the way kind of like this kind of intuitive awareness in observing. And then say anicca dukkha anatta, three characteristics: uncertainty or change, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, and not selfness, or it's not in my control, say. Well, anything which is causally related like this body, emotions, relationships, the planet, is certainly very uncertain. Certainly very uncertain. That was good. That's the only certainty, is the uncertainty. So if it's uncertain and it's changing, that can't be the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated form, logically. And it's unsatisfactory for me, the way I use dukkha in this. And dukkha is used in many, many ways, several ways. But dukkha, in this sense, it's unsatisfactory in relationship to the unconditioned. So a cup of oolong tea, which I just had, was satisfactory. But it's unsatisfactory in that its characteristic is it's an experience. It comes and goes. So to think that oolong tea is a nibbanic experience is wrong view. It's not like that. But you see, then that applies to all experience. So this, when we talk about, for me, the three characteristics, dukkha it's not related to pleasure. If we talk about dukkha vedana and sukha vedana, the feelings, yeah, that's related to pleasure. Or if we talk about the Four Noble Truths, we have the noble truth of suffering. But in the three characteristics teaching, to me, at least this is the way I use it, it's just don't go there, because that's conditioned. And hence it's unsatisfactory. Which doesn't, so pleasure is unsatisfactory in relationship to the unconditioned. So don't rely on pleasure, but if it's there, be grateful. Luang Sumedo has a lovely way of relating that, and he's several times, once or twice I remember, like we're in Newfoundland and we're looking out the water, and really nice, sitting next to him, and it's sunny, and Ajahn Asoka's there, and we're looking out, and Luang turns to me, Viradhammo, this is a peak experience. And it's just a lovely memory, but that's a good way to put it. Now, like if I would say, oh, that's great, and then some hardcore Buddhist, yeah, but it'll change. That kind of Buddhist put down that you should not. But that was really kind of lovely. Yeah, let's enjoy. And then it'll change. So that when people read that everything is dukkha, they go, oh, what a depressing religion that is. But of course, that's a misunderstanding. It's that all things arise and cease, and hence they're unsatisfactory. Don't attach to them, but live with them in the best you can and create beauty if you want. But it's not the direction of Nibbana. Nibbana is inwards. And I think that's important. And then anatta is a very difficult one, but basically it's out of your control. As you get older, you realize that, don't you? So certainly we have inputs and so on, but I don't own this. This body is not mine. It's nature's body and all the rest of it. So anatta does not deny consciousness, still there. It does not deny individuality, that's still there. It's just saying the sense of ownership of all this stuff that goes on, all our experiences, is not valid. It's not true. You don't own it. So who are you? It's that kind of thing. So the three characteristics fit in with dependent origination, fit in with my aspiration for the unconditioned, by basically telling me where to look. So then I don't have to study the conditions. I don't have to study dependent origination. Once I understand that, okay, I get that, why that's there. So then the question is, what's not dependent? So then if you take the Four Noble Truths, the Four Noble Truths then is again looking at life through the lens of stream of consciousness rather through the lens of worldly endeavor. So in worldly endeavor we use the sense of I. I am Viradhammo and I live there, and so on and so forth. And I have responsibilities. But when we're looking at the First Noble Truth, there is suffering. We're looking at stream of consciousness as a flow of experience and trying to not take it personally. When we're living in the world of, when we're talking about conventional reality, I take it personally. So when I have a toothache, I go to the dentist. I don't say, Arnprior, you go to the dentist for me. It's not my tooth. It doesn't compute. Or you just ignore it. So I take care of things. So we can do both, right? We can engage in life in a personal way, and we can witness life in an impersonal way. And by engaging in life in a personal way, we witness. That's why we talk about witnessing. You witness the changing nature of consciousness, conscious experience, emotion, thoughts, and the whole thing. To do that, that's a skill we develop, a kind of multitasking skill, isn't it? Like you're with family and friends and there's something going on and you're watching yourself. I mean, most people must do this, you'd be crazy. But we really try to heighten that capacity of inner attention, inner vigilance. Not inner self-obsession. This is not about some kind of egotistical self-obsession and with my problems. No, it's actually witnessing the flow of events. So the First Noble Truth is there is suffering rather than I am suffering. That's big. And Luang was brilliant at pointing that out to us. It's not about you, it's about the suffering. So it is about me when I break my leg and I have to go to the hospital, but then if I'm lying in the hospital and observing, then it's feelings, noise, sound, whatever it is. So there is suffering, and that suffering can be observed, and it can be understood, and the cause can be understood. So that's the whole. That's the kind of really go-to tools that and I think most of Luang Por Sumedho's disciples have used a lot, because that's what he's always emphasizing. So it's kind of like it's like when I used to make wooden things, I had a nice set of chisels, and there were 2, 3 that I used all the time. So I always kept them really, really sharp. They make my go-to chisels. So the kind of idea with the Four Noble Truths is that's your go-to teaching. If you get any kind of confusion or whether, go pick that one up, because that should unravel the knot for you. If you've overdrawn your Visa card, you got a different problem. You have to go to the bank. But in this way, so you start to become skillful at awakening to suffering. So like it might be you're just feeling annoyed at someone in the family, and rather than kind of running with the complaining, whatever it might be, you say, oh, this suffering feels like this. And that's the first noble truth. It's an awakening to this sense of discontent that I have in minor or major ways. So suffering is a very hard word, it's a very strong word. But if I'm bored with something and I'm just lost in thoughts of boredom, there is suffering there because I want something else, but I'm not noticing this, I'm just lost in suffering. So that awakening to the way things are is why what we talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is the awakening to what's going on. So maybe I could just segue into that. Where does segue come from? It's a good word, isn't it? I like that word. No, it's not. I think it's this one. Oh, someone asked about loneliness. Yes, someone. Yeah, so the question from the Ethernet, how does one process loneliness? So that's a good example that, well, first of all, a question like that is very difficult because I don't know the context. So I apologize in advance because loneliness can be so many different complicated factors. Someone dies or whatever. So there's all of that. But just say if we're going to consider the Four Noble Truths, then loneliness comes up, and there's a sense of not rightness, of discontent or whatever it might be, and you have to recognize that. Oh, this is discontent. Just actually say that to yourself, rather than just think lonely thoughts. Again, the caveat is maybe someone has died in the family, maybe this person is now in an old people's home and they're not with the family. I mean, there's so many reasons for it, but just as an example. So loneliness is an object, because loneliness is different than excitement. Yeah, so it is an object. But with heedlessness, we become the subject through thought, through inattention, and keep doing that, then that seems like a reality, this sense of loneliness. So to make something conscious. So when we did these bodily meditations, I said, make conscious the feeling in your hand. And that is an exercise which you try to also apply to the moods of the mind. Make conscious. So just recognizing that one feels lonely is a good one. And then, loneliness feels this way. To actually say that. Make it like it come up. So you can get some distance around it, some space around it. Now, obviously, I'd also recommend developing Kalyanamitta, doing good works, being generous, and weaving. That'll do it. That should cover a lot. So that aside, so now the feeling of loneliness is a very real thing, but it's unpleasant, right? So the feeling arises, it's unpleasant. So what's the cause of suffering? Is it the feeling, or is it the desire to have a different feeling? And the Four Noble Truths says it's the desire to have a different feeling, not this feeling. And that's the nub of the problem. The nub of the problem is not loneliness, that's natural. It's the attachment to wanting to be different, and then all the thinking cycles that kind of run on from that. And if that's been going on for 5 years, you can be very much embedded as a seeming reality. So then the question is, like, what do I want? I want friends. And maybe the tears start. Quite often when one raises, one actually like really says, what is loneliness? What is that? Then quite often dark stuff comes up. Right? That's not uncommon. It comes up into consciousness, and maybe that's been pushed away. So it's maybe not an easy thing. But that direct approach to awakening is not a challenging, it's an awakening. So then that question, what do I want? What do I not want? And then you wait and you observe and become somehow conversant with the feeling of loneliness. And if you can notice the wanting, then you start to get skillful at not buying into the wanting with thinking. If you don't buy into the wanting with thinking, you start to face the feeling of loneliness very directly. And it is anicca dukkha anatta. And it is not you. And it does change. And it is dependently originated. And it's dependently originated on external circumstances, but also on thought. And so once you get the handle on that, you start to see it cease. Not guaranteed. These things are very powerful, but that would be the ideas of the Four Noble Truths. So the cessation of suffering would be the cessation of the desire to have that different than it is. So when it came up again and again, you just notice, oh, loneliness feels this way. And you could bear witness to it. Now, loneliness is much more difficult than something like fear or anger. They've got a lot of juice in them, right? They've got a lot of energy, so it's kind of, but like doubt and loneliness, they're very insidious. They sneak up on you because they don't have any powerful energy in them. But if you're attentive, you're witnessing your thinking mind. And so, like I say in the mornings, what's the mood of the mind? What kind of thoughts are there? And you think, it doesn't sound very happy in there. Or, wait, what's it doing? Oh yeah, that's worry. That worry feels this way. And then you get some distance. So with the Four Noble Truths, one of you apply that to your own situation. So for me, my lesson, as I always say, was through fear. And it was the fear of the fear, which was the real difficulty. It wasn't the fear, it was the desire not to have the fear of the fear. It took me a long time, it took me a while to figure that out. Longpo Sumedho, he helped me a lot, and then I saw, oh, yeah, it's the fear of the fear. Yeah, but I don't want this. I don't want this sense of terror or panic attack. And he said, welcome it. And that's a commonplace now, don't we? We talk about things like that. Welcome it into consciousness. It can't hurt you. Just to share that, and you've heard this one too, but it's such a good story. So if you've heard it before, be patient. But I was in Amaravati, and there was a lovely Christian fellow who was visiting for 3 days. Really, really warm-hearted. And obviously his religious language was different than mine, and he started to talk about a devil. The devil was following him around. The devil? Really interesting. Yeah, he's got red eyes. Ooh, yeah? Is he here now? No, well, you can't see him right now, but I'm really afraid of him. I said, well, have you ever thought of offering a cup of tea? He, what? I said, no, really, welcome him in. He's all right. I've seen it myself. I don't know if I said that, but so next day I see him. I said, "Oh, okay. What happened? What happened?" I said, "Evening meditation was over. This is Amaravati, big dhamma hall. Everyone had left. I was there, and he came. The devil came. So I got my courage up. I said, come on in. Have a cup of tea." And then in the end, I was crying, the devil was crying, and the Buddha was crying. All three of us were in tears in the shrine room. What a lovely story. So the worst thing, right, quite often is the thing that opens you up in some kind of a way. So the question is not so much the quality of the experience, it's the desire that is now latched on to the quality of experience. So there's that. So in terms of the path, mindfulness is obviously very, very important. And the thing about unfurnished attention is one way to look at. I mean, mindfulness, we talk about it in many ways. So you're mindful of change, that kind of thing. But just in terms of this idea of unfurnished attention, like let's say we have, for the online people, we have 2 trees here, which were cut down 5 years ago, and they were beautiful, beautiful oak trees. One was well over 100 years old, and now one is maybe 30-foot stump, which has strapping around it and looks sad. And gets us all wondering, what the heck did you do that for? So, and that's just behind me here in the dark, just so the online folk know what I'm talking about. So we go outside and you look at the tree, or the X tree, how do we say the X tree, or something like that. And it used to have a plaque, remember, about the... It's still there, I haven't looked at it.
1860.
1860, what, 60?
Yeah, 1860.
So, you look at the tree, and the furnished mind, as we say, makes comment. Yeah, hey, what? Well, why did they do that? And, at least they could have cut it down. And it was such a lovely tree, and the one across the street too. So that's the furnished mind. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you just look at that tree before commentary, it is as it is. It's like this, which isn't like a rejection of commentary. It's just taking another angle on it. And I think this is what the Bahia Sutta speaks to. In seeing, there's just seeing. And there's the silence. There's the silence. And that is what it opens to the unconditioned. The commentary opens to what can we do about this, which is fine, or not. But then that silence, which is facilitated through unfurnished attention. It's always there. Trouble is the furnishings, right? It's like a bad IKEA store. We have so much commentary and judgment and all of that running through our minds. It's actually very hard to just witness something in purity, in that kind of pure way. But you can, once you start to just do those exercises of a simple sense experience without commentary. And that's why I think I like to introduce meditations. I say, listen to sound. And it's not about the sound, it's about the silence. If I make commentary about the sound, then I'm not listening to the sound. I'm in the commentary about the sound. And listen to sound. And there's the silence of knowing, unfurnished awareness. Feel the body. Beauty does that very nicely, doesn't it? Beauty has a facility to bring us to silence. You look across. By the way, this is 3 kilometers wide here. I looked it up. Google AI, modern monk. 3 kilometers, that's amazing. So that's the furnished mind. So I look out and look, what's that mound over there? What is that? Is that copper tailings? What is that? It must be a mine. That's the furnished, right? Well, it's not wrong. I'm just a fisherman. I wonder what to catch here. Pike? So the mind's always kind of making commentary, which we know. So, but no, we make an exercise. In the seeing, there's just seeing. And beauty, distance, space, openness is very, very inviting that way. And there's the silence. Go into the pine forest, right? God, that's gorgeous. That all of Ontario used to have pine trees like that. Why did they cut them? Commentary. And then you stop. You say, oh, pine forest is like this. You don't even say wow. I mean, you're allowed. I mean, you don't lose any marks for saying wow. But after the wow. And this is what awe is about, isn't it? That sense of, it's like the degraded word awesome. But just awe, what is awe? Like seeing an ocean, the expanse of that. So you can do that in the mundane too. You can look at your toothbrush and say, God, I need a new toothbrush. Or you can say, nothing. And then you could actually brush your teeth and say nothing. And then you could maybe even make a cup of tea and say nothing. And then you'd be mindful. So that's very hard to do, isn't it? It's amazingly hard to do. And that's not the same as trying to focus on brushing your teeth so that you don't think. It's a different exercise. You've probably done it. I've done it a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4. But actually, it's just the experience of touch and taste. And these are lovely exercises, actually. They're kind of quite nice to do. They're not compelling you to be silent. Not a rejection of that. And then with the thinking mind, how to awaken to that as an object is the most difficult, I should think. The most difficult thing, because it really does. It preoccupies our attention, fills up the bandwidth, and where does it lead to? Same old. So I think Lompo Sumedho's suggestion of making conscious thought by thinking deliberately is very helpful. So if the person who's feeling lonely notices that loneliness invites a certain kind of thinking, and then takes that quite mindfully, think, I am feeling so lonely. And then stops at the end of the thought. I am so lonely. Now that could take you to depression, I realize. But in terms of thinking, if you can take a thought, first of all, you can be mindful enough to know that these are the patterns of thinking that are going on is a step. And then you can take one of those patterns and just think it deliberately for just a wee bit. And then stop and listen. Then you've broken the chain. And you keep doing that. You keep making that encouragement. This is very true in like Anapanasati. You kind of, thoughts come up. You notice the end of a thought. And there's the breath. So thought becomes more and more an object. And then it becomes more and more quiet. But that's the hardest bit, isn't it? That kind of endless thinking mind. Let me just cover a couple of questions before we all run away. A question about chair. So someone in our elderly community asked me about chairs and how do you transition from floor to chair. It's a lot of suffering. I used to have a really good full lotus, and then I whacked a knee in Chithurst, and then I wrecked the other knee in New Zealand, all building work. So I had a lot of trouble with getting a posture because I'd be compensating on my knees and my neck would be crook. But I resisted sitting on a chair because our life, like eating from a bowl, you sit on the floor. But anyway, when I finally succumbed to old age, then I realized, well, one thing for me is I have long legs and the chair has to be tall. I think it's 18 inches to there, 18 or 19. So I had to make sure that I had a chair which was tall enough so that my hips were above my knees. So like say in the sewing room in the monastery, if I want to use the sewing machine, the chair there is like down here. Oh. So I have 3 zafus on it so I can get at the pedals and so on. But that is a basic in sitting meditation, that your hips should be higher than your knees. If you try to sit on a soft bed, cross-legged, that's really hard because your back is straining to get up. So that's one thing I learned, is like get a good chair, and then like some of the monks who have to use chairs, they'll put a block of wood, like a 2x4, under the back legs and push it forward. So you're up like that more rather than back here more. Do that a lot. Then you have like orbis form stuff to support you, that kind of, that's a bit, and you don't want to carry your 2x4 around to the retreat. But those things are, those things are very, very helpful. What do you got? He's got Exhibit A. Here you go. There you go. He brings his own blocks.
Jim Howe.
Jim Howe. Bless his heart. So you put one under each leg. It makes a difference, doesn't it? Propels you forward. That can be huge. You're not getting tired. Then also, I don't like. I shouldn't tell you though. I don't like these chairs. So I see there. I'm sorry. But like I got a really fancy chair they got for me in the monastery, which is really nice, and it had arms on it. I just cut them off because I got fairly big shoulders, so I'm broad here. So I don't like weight on the shoulders, on the elbows. I like it kind of loose and so on. So I kind of just figured out what works for me. But then I think you asked about sleepiness and the changing of posture that produced the sleepiness. Well, maybe you were sleepier on the floor too. I don't know. Not so. Okay. So there's something about your spine being held by the back of the chair, right? So then some monks will just sit like that. But then you like, to sit like that is hard on my back. So then I'd kind of do cross-legged. Then if I want to sit on the edge, I do that, and then I don't use the backrest. I don't get too much sleepiness. So yeah, you think about like the floor posture required quite a more effort than just sinking back. So then you look at, like in terms of sleepiness, you have to get enough samadhi to see that sleepiness is happening. And by samadhi, I mean just conscious, being present and conscious. So if you find you're sleepy, then just stop meditating. Whatever you're doing is not working, right? So because the delusion of sleepiness is, this will be all right, and it's not. So then you have to open your eyes, look around, just like stop meditating. And that's a kind of samadhi, in the sense that you're now present. So then once you're present, then you can watch the arising of dullness, and that's the difficult part. And where you usually notice that is in the spine and in the neck, because the head's moving. So that becomes the focal point of the observation. If you're doing breath meditation, it's really calming and putting you to sleep, then that's not working. You might do pranayama, you might do something like that, but usually it's just that, and then the eyes open. It's a very boring thing to work with, but that's what you got. So you're kind of developing around that. If I may, just one more question. How do we gently guide ourselves into living in the heart, especially when the mind is occupied with ruminating thoughts, anxieties, and fears? Well, that's everyone's problem, isn't it? The ruminating mind. Is that from cows? Is that where we get that word, right? Ruminate? I don't know. Redigesting. So this area, the heart. many ways. Like if one took the anxiety and fear part of that question, and you say, and you have enough personal space and situation that you can just observe this without having to protect yourself or be a personality in a social situation where you have to push that all aside. So in the privacy of your own meditation, you can actually welcome fear, welcome anxiety, and see how does it feel here and here. Very simple to do. Sorry. I heard it. I heard the microphone. I can get really silly after all day. But that works a lot. So the question, where is it? Where is this anxiety? As opposed to the thinking of anxious thoughts. So that's the first noble truth. Suffering, where is it? And then the labeling method that we have. Anxiety. This is anxiety, this is fear, where is it? So you have to give up solving the solution of your anxiety through thought and say, no, what's important now is the very feeling of anxiety. Is the very feeling, and then where is it? So getting in contact with that is where the heart contracts, where it closes. So quite often being aware there is an opening of the heart in some kind of a way, or the belly. So that can be very important. And then kind of just making strong determinations to not go there with the thinking mind. You guess you just have this really good idea, don't go there. And then that even better idea, no, don't go there. And then that horrible idea, no, don't pick it up. A lot of it is just that, don't go there, which is not repressing thought, it's just making a choice. I've been there so many times, I'm not going there. And choosing silence. And how do you choose silence? So you say, no, it's like this. Keep choosing silence, even though it sounds hopeless. So there's that intentionality towards silence. So like I said at the beginning of the retreat, more silence. And yet the mind, with its cleverness, can create things you need to think about. So there's that. And then there's imagery, and there's metta practices. So the practices I have always used in my own heart development is simply bringing up the name and feeling of someone I love, and then breathing here, being in contact with the feeling here, welcoming that loving perception here, and then giving back gratitude. So the connection to the person is the loving perception. It's not a narrative. I'm not thinking about them in a narrative way. Oh, we did this and we did that. No, it's just the perception. So if I think of Luang, there's a deep affection there right away. And then go to that. May you be well. And then someone else and so on. So that's a very common way. It's coordinated with the breath. It's coordinated with feeling, with an intention. Then the idea of like I use imagery a lot, and so I think some of you know I've been using imagery to contemplate compassion. So I have one image of, that in Turkey they had that there was a dam broke. There was a rock slide and a dam broke, and like 500 people died in a minute, something like that, massive thing. And then in the whatever media thing I was looking at, there was a picture of a woman. She was wearing a hijab, and she had lost all her kids and husband and brothers, and like that. The whole thing was lost. And the abject suffering in her face was heartrending. It really was. So I took a screenshot of that, and now I have it on my desktop. I'm pretty good, eh? I don't even know these terms. But anyway, so then sometimes I'll just bring it up, and I'll look at the picture, But I won't think about it. I won't think, oh, what is she going to do? That's horrible. And how's she going to survive that? I don't go there. I go to the heart. Because it is horrible and it is difficult. But what is compassion? Is compassion that I shy away from the horrors of the world? I think caution in not filling up my life with the horrible stories of politics, yeah, I do that. But the very contact with like a compassionate image I found very powerful. And some people can't do that because it just reverberates in their hearts too hard and it's too difficult. So I would look at that. And then I had another one of a woman, an ancient woman. She was very old, in Ukraine. And that really touched me. So I just look at that. And then where's that feeling? It's here. And then that would kind of echo in my day. But I wouldn't go to the story. I wouldn't go to the judgment, because I knew all that. I wouldn't go to the politics. I'd just go to human suffering. But then I'd counter that, and you probably heard me talk about this, I counter that with another image of mudita, or joy. And then I have a couple like that. I mean, many. But the two that I used most frequently, one is a picture of a elderly woman who is, she looks ancient, maybe 85 years old. She's about 80. And she's looking up to a young man who's much, much taller than her. And they're beaming these smiles at each other. And then behind them is another woman, young woman, and she's beaming a smile at both of them. And the elderly woman is a teacher, a dance teacher. And these are two dancers. And it's just one of those, oh, that's lovely. It just kind of makes your heart happy. Where do I feel that? I feel that here. And my latest joy image, I have more joy images than I like those better. But my latest joy image is Arnprior Bhikkhu. In January, visited His Holiness the Dalai Lama in southern India and got a personal audience with him, very, very brief. And he was the second person. And the picture shows His Holiness, and the colors are beautiful. His Holiness has a really lovely orange robe on, really kind of bright and happy color. Arnprior is on his knees, radiant, blissed out, looking up at His Holiness. And he's given His Holiness a picture of me, taken in New Zealand in 1992, when His Holiness first visited New Zealand, and I was part of the organizing committee. And I'm giving His Holiness a kata, the white scarf. And His Holiness looks at that and he takes the picture up, and so the picture is His Holiness touching the picture to his forehead. And Arnprior is just blissed out. So look at that picture. And that's here, right? It's actually the same place. So the Brahma Viharas, as we say, are I think they're the place of abiding that we go as desire fades, as greed, hatred, and delusion drop away, as a lot heavy stuff. Then I think the natural way is in the heart, but we can stimulate that in different ways. So there are, of course, the traditional ways of doing metta bhavana, where you do those lists. I never did that. But it is important. It is very, very important. One of the interesting ways to also touch the heart is the kind of Advaita way of just saying, I am. That's an interesting one. Not I am this or that. Just I am. So if you're a kind of hardcore Theravada Buddhist, how can you say I am? It's anatta. Oh, leave me alone. But if it's just a word, it's not a philosophical statement, right? It's not a belief. But you just say, I am. It's presence is here. You can't deny that. You want to call it an I, yeah, but if you just say, I am, that touches my heart. I don't know why. I don't know, it touches your heart. But that's a very classic way that, say, Nisargadatta would teach, I am. So, like Nisargadatta would say, wisdom tells me that I am nothing, love tells me that I am everything, and between the two I live. Oh, that's good. He was wonderful. So, the fact that the question is there is good. The fact that the person wants to investigate that. But just like doing body meditation and kind of bringing down, 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 like making conscious, like especially the throat, because sometimes the throat is closed, and then coming here, just let that just rest there, let that become conscious over and over and over again. Then when there are instances of kindness, can it go to that place? Okay, kindness feels like this. Keep going to that, because it is there. It's just it gets overlaid with a lot of thinking and negativity. And finally, I would say, protect your mind from the internet. That is such a toxic possibility. It's also interesting. Like I've learned all my weaving from YouTube and books and things. So it's great in that way, but it has dangerous territories of negativity. So that can really close you down into cynicism, because the things can be very, very disturbing. And then talk with friends who have a loving nature. That helps too. So I think I've covered it. Yep, that's it. You gonna do that? Yeah.
Sadhu, 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 anumodani.
The word anumodana means I rejoice in your goodness. It's a form of mudita. So it's not saying great talk, Viradhammo. It's saying good try. So that's a word we use a lot. Like if a lay person makes say some contribution to the monastery or something, we'll write back anumodana. I rejoice in your goodness. I'm happy for your happiness. Nice, it's a nice one. Shall we finish with sharing of verses of sharing an aspiration? Page blah blah blah.